The camera's working. All right, so we're recording again. And share screen. All right, very rude little computer dying. And I'm going to close out of this because it just gets fussy. So when you close out of the database, you can see that little lock symbol disappears, and now we can open it back up. But with the database, what you want to do is want to make a copy of the database on a local drive, like the C hard drive, in your own directory. Because one, if you're playing with the database and somebody else needs to use it and you've got it open, you don't want to have them open it up and then start overwriting data. And then also if it's on the C drive, like the local hard drive, it just works a lot better. Like on the Z drive, it's a network connection, and sometimes it takes forever to have that connection be made. That's why some of the queries take forever to run. And then also I compacted and repaired the database, because at least on this version, there's some problems with that though when it gets too large, but I can tell you about that later. So, okay. But for this one right here, this is a more efficient version of OR 219. So I've made a actually I'm going to make a copy of this over on my hard drive so it runs better and it's faster. We're not waiting around for this thing. I'll just throw this on E. So you open it up from Windows, and then what you'll see is when you first open it up, what will be appearing is all the tables. And basically I've reduced the number of tables that are visible, but the table we're going to look at is 219 purviance. This is the purviance table. And the purviance table has, what you might expect. It's got the inventory field, the unit field, and then the purviance field. And that purviance field, let's see. Oh boy. If you go to view here, here's all the fields right here. And basically, let me see. Unhide field. Some of these fields are hidden. Looks like y'all were doing the data entry for the light fraction and heavy fraction.
It's been a while.
It's been a while for that. Okay. Purviance and excavation date. Let's see where it is. Excavation date. Excavators and notes. And we've got inventory number here. Yeah. So this probably looks a little more familiar. And if we go down to more recent inventory numbers, like all the way down here, here's some of the stuff that you'll be more familiar with. It looks like y'all updated the database like last week for the more recent purviances. So there's basically a different table for every group of data. There's a table for the purviance data that has all the the inventory numbers, the purviance, the unit, feature, strata, excavators, excavation date. And then there's also a table for data, which is right here, which is has all the inventory numbers, catalog numbers, NCAT numbers, and this one has a massive amount of data in it, because OR 219 has both, the Mount Pleasant data from like 1997 all the way through 2004, and then the Overseers data as well from like 2019 on. And then how all these these tables work is they relate to each other. And I'll show you that in a little bit. There are fields that connect the two. And so the field that connects 219 data to the purveyance data is the inventory field. So this inventory number right here refers to the purveyance table right here, which is, here's the inventory number, and then all the purveyance, the unit data that was excavated is stored in this table right here. And this is the whole concept of a relational database, is that you're able to take, like, you know, and like if this data was in Excel, it'd be what's called a flat table. Like you could bring this purveyance data into Excel, kind of like it is in Airtable. Airtable is like a flat, a flat, essentially spreadsheet. You can't relate one table to the next. But in Access, the whole design of a database is to be able to reference one table to the next. And that's where, when you look at this picture right here, figure 1, relationships between all the tables, that's what this is referring to, is that you know, your 219 data, which is all the catalog data, it makes reference to the purveyance field, and then also to the typology, which is north, sum, south. And this is where, like on this, like the OR 219 important tables, that's what these are. There's like about 6 different tables that, you know, you need to know in order to access the data to get to it. The catalog sheet data, you know, all the catalog sheets, that goes into 219 data. And that's all the artifact data, whether it's brick data or ceramic data, all that is entered into the 219 data. Your purveyance table, which is the lab and field inventory, which comes from Airtable, that's all the inventory numbers and purveyances. And then the unit data, that one needs to be updated. We have not updated, but all that is stored in ArcPro, in GIS. So that's the you know, the table where if you're opening up a unit and you're, you know, desodding it, you change the status of it. That's the unit table. So all that can be brought into Access. And that one isn't really needed as much in Access anymore, because all the locational data for the units is in GIS. So if we compile a bunch of data on units in Access, we'll just put in the unit field, and then we can bring that into GIS and suck it into that, and then create, you know, distribution plots and those sorts of things. Feature form, that's another one that is living in GIS today, but needs to be brought in. And there's, you know, reasons for that. Like, you know, if you're doing distribution data, GIS is great, because you need GIS to show where all, like, the artifact concentrations are, you know, across the site. But if you're doing something where you want to compare the number of like ceramics and bottle glasses from the borrowed pit versus the subfloor pit, you're going to be doing all that in Access. And so that's where we do need to bring in the feature data for that. And then the last one is the there's site stratum, and that's living in GIS as well. And then the last one is the typology, which is north, sum, south. And y'all know what a typology is, like all the artifact categories, like, you know, different types of ceramics and glass and so forth. And there's in each of these, there are you know, unique fields for all this stuff. So you know, going over some of these tables, like you know, for the purveyance table right here, I'd say the most important fields in this one are, for the purveyance, is the inventory field, your purveyance field, your unit field, and then the feature field, and then excavation date. And these obviously are in columns, and they've got names, And when you write a query or try to get to the data, you got to know where stuff is. So if you're looking to, to create a table of all the total amount of brick that was found at the site, you have to know where, basically where all that data sits in Access. So if you're trying to show where the units are, you're going to want to have the provenience field, because the catalog data, which all sits in this table right here, or 219 data. If you were trying to look for what unit is associated with an inventory number, you're not going to find it in the 219 data table, because when you catalog, on the catalog sheet, you don't write down what unit it is, you write down the inventory number. And then to figure out from the inventory number where the unit is, that's where you go to ORNA 219 provenience, and then this inventory number refers to the provenience field. So, and that's all coming from Airtable and gets brought into this. And then it's the same thing for your the actual artifact data. If you're looking to find all the tablewares that have been cataloged and came from a unit, when you look in your data table, like the reference field for this is what's called NCAT_num, and this is the number that's associated with the artifact typology. And then the artifact typology is in a bizarre sounding table called NART_SUM South. And I won't even get into that, but NART_SUM used to be the old, and I'm just going to change this because we haven't written that many queries. I don't think it'll be a problem. Don't be scared. Be terrified.
Okay.
So, but NART_SUM South, NART_SUM used to be the name of the field when it was this, like instead of being a numeric field, it was this alphanumeric field, this is what Lynn Lewis used like 20 years ago. It was a Roman numeral and then an alphabetic letter and then a number, and it was this hierarchical typology that was coded in. And it was great because with that typology field, you knew each of those, the Roman numeral referred to the larger group of artifacts and so on and so forth. But for data entry, it was an absolute nightmare, because if you mixed up an I with a 1, the database wouldn't recognize it, because databases don't have AI. They're like, if you, like with the inventory number, if you get one number off in the inventory number, everybody loses their crap because you can't find where that sample is from. And the same thing with this with the NCAT_num, with the typology, the artifact typology, it all has to be exact. So this NCAT_num right here refers to this table right here, which is in NART_SUM South, and South refers to the Stanley South artifact categories, and that is something that Lynn and others used, but we don't use that anymore. But the number, where is that number?
All the way on the right.
All the way on the right. Yeah, there it is. So the NCAT number right here refers to, here in this table right here, it has the description. So in this case, like NCAT number 502, if we scroll down here and look for 502, 502 is fossil remains mammal teeth. And then this artifact typology has, comp is the overall compilation of all these different categories. So this is the old system right here, like Roman numeral, alphabetical, numeric, and then the smaller letter. And I don't know. Yeah, and then here's this old NCAT system with a Roman numeral, which refers to this one, which is subsistence. The A is this second grouping, which is the letter, and then the 1 is a numeral or a number, numeric. for that category right there. And then finally, this one that's right here is the smaller alphabetic, which is AIG, which gets into the details. And then all this is compiled into this field, which is why it's called the comp field. So, but this is useful to have because if you want to sort your the typology on, like, this is a hierarchical typology, meaning that all the different categories of artifacts are grouped together. Like, for example, it starts out with ceramics because ceramics are very important for archaeology, and it goes from ceramics to coarse earthenware to redware, and then all the details of what's in redware, and so on and so forth. You can get, go down to creamware right here. When we still use this one when we enter a new artifact type in, because we want to fit it into this typology. And then in some cases, these details right here, like if you go down to nails, nails right here, these categories right here can be useful because if you want to look for all rot nails, and we have obviously a whole bunch of different types of rot nails, you can use this field right here to pull out whether the nails are hand wrought, machine cut, and then machine cut with with a hand wrought head or a hand wrought tip. So these are all the different categories of nails right there. And the utility of this will become apparent when you write a query, because since this field has the same values, when you write a query called a summary query, it'll, when if you have 5,000 entries for hand wrought nails, it'll collapse it all into a single line and then add up the total number of nails that are in a single unit. Or if you take out the unit and you just want it for the site, like all the hand wrought nails that were ever found at the Mount Pleasant site that are in the database. So this is where like the real power of relational databases come in, is to add this stuff up in an Excel table would be an absolute nightmare. You'd have to hand enter all the data, which you have to do anyways, but then index it on, say, one of these fields and then do a summary of that. It would not work. It'd be absolutely unmanageable. And so the main concept to get out of this is that you've got different tables that hold different data, and the main tables you need to know for all this stuff are the OR 219 data, which is the catalog data table, the provenance table, and then the artifact typology. So does that make sense so far? I don't know how much exposure you all have had. I guess a number of you have not done data entry yet. So, and the trickiest thing about the database isn't there is the concept of the database that you have to learn, but the trickiest thing about the database is knowing where the data is held, like where it actually sits and what field you use to get access to that data. So, so what we'll do is, let's see.
Can I make a really quick point?
Yeah.
The reason why sometimes you see me or Miranda or Kyra posting in Labs Field is often because we are bringing in stuff from Airtable into 219 for Bean, and that's when we have to do that final check for if all the soil volume is listed, if the strat is listed, things like that. And so this becomes really important when we are bringing things into Airtable to make sure things are completely filled out. And that's, it's important for all reasons, but it's because of the database that we have to make sure everything is really all our T's are crossed and our I's are dotted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And how, if you all should try to play with Access, but for your projects, we'll compile the data for you, because trying to figure all this out in Access can be an absolute nightmare and a little bit overwhelming. And basically, the data that you all need for your for your papers, you know, there's some pretty basic data that you'll need, and then, you know, bringing that into GIS. It's something we'll be helping you with, because otherwise it's just kind of too much to go into. I mean, we've been using Access. How long have you been using Access, Liz?
Ooh, 2008.
Yeah, for over a decade.
Yeah.
I 2008.
Yeah,
When did you?
in undergrad.
Oh, in
Or
undergrad.
No, 2011, 2011.
2011. Okay. All right. Yeah, because I didn't start using Access until 2002. Before that was, no, 2001.
Yeah. mine's
Because
still
before that it was DBase, which is even worse. DBase is a line dot prompt software, which I taught a course in that in graduate school, and everybody thought they were going to die. So at least this is in Windows, which is a lot better, but it still feels pretty primitive today, given how, you know, like graphically oriented GIS is, which is amazing. So for the database, and you all have gotten exposed to this in Airtable. Is an Airtable, you probably know that there are fields, some fields that are numeric and other fields that are text. And in a text field, you can enter in, you know, alphanumeric data. You can enter in letters and you can enter in numbers, just like, you know, the provenience field. The provenience field is an example of a text field. It's got, you know, the unit number and then the letter in it. But and then within this, within the provenience field, you've got a category within this, which is the unit, which technically is a numeric field. And I can't remember if in the Airtable it's a numeric field or it's a text field. In this one, this is actually a text field.
The number.
It's a number.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've kept unit as a text field, because in the olden days of like pre-97, some of the unit numbers were unit letters. So it's like some of the some of the plow zone ones are like J11. So you all probably seen that.
You know, top whatever. Someone.
Yeah, test unit P. Yeah, that's right. It's test unit P, test unit J, because J was the area, the 100-foot by 100-foot block for the plow zone survey, and then they opened up units within that. So it gets kind of messy with that, and we just had to keep it as a text field. But as you can imagine, with a numeric field, you can add it up. And also the nice thing about a numeric field is that you can index it and have it indexed properly. So like with this field right here, when you index this, when you index this one, let's see, this is for provenience. Let me go down here. You'll notice that like it goes from 1920 and then to 200. And then the same thing with the inventory field. This inventory field right here is a number, and that one's nice because it all indexes properly. But this one is a text field, and so it does this stupid thing where, you know, if you're going to index this properly, you'd have to put a 0 in right there. So, and not to belabor the point, but with a numeric field, you can add stuff up. With a text field, you can't. And so that becomes important in writing queries, because there's operations you can do inside a query where you like do a sum and it adds everything up that's in that field. And you obviously have to know that, like, you can't do a summation on the provenience because it's a text field. And so there's some basic structure with that you need to know. And behind the table here, if you go to what's called view up here, this has all the fields and then what kind of data type they're in, what type of data type they are, whether they're like a number or short text, which is a text field. So that's the background for that. And every one of these tables has that as a background. And you might have seen this in GIS as well, like under the attribute table, you can go to the fields and it shows all the fields and then what kind of type they are. Because like sometimes you'll probably run out of room like in the notes field. And then you got to go in and change that, but you can't because that's one part of GIS that's an absolute nightmare is once you have that set, I don't know, it's some of the weird mysteries of access. So some of the weird magic of it. But so in looking at the data, one thing you can actually go in and look at like the data itself. You can do this through the tables, and you noticed when I went into that, like if I close out Purviance here, yes, God, that is loud. But if you go into, say, Purviance right here, this has everything in it with all the different fields that are here. Another thing you can do to look at tables is to actually go to what's called queries, which is what it sounds like. A query like allows you to ask a question of the table and then pull in fields and then set criteria for the table. So to create a query, you go to create and then you go to query design, and we're going to bring in, this is all the tables. I hid a lot of them. It's kind of a nightmare. It's just all the data that's in over 219 is we will bring in 219 Purviance here. And what this shows is like all the fields that are in the Purviance table. And this has a lot of fields because a long time ago we started to enter all the unit strata data into Access, and that just became unmanageable. So we stopped doing that. But for this, like if we wanted to see, like what would you want to see of the Purviance table? If you could see anything in the Purviance table, this is like your wildest dreams. What would you want to see? What kind of question would you want to ask of the data that's been excavated this season? Like the units that have been opened up this season.
How many?
Like how many? Okay, we could do that. And so what we do is if you brought in the inventory field and we ran this query, it would just be all the inventory numbers. And if you just brought the inventory field in, you couldn't see when they were excavated. So in this case, to see when they were excavated, what we'd want to do is bring in the excavation date, EX date right there. And now when we run this, you can see all the dates that are here. So these are like all the way back to 1987, because these are all the units that were excavated. And then if we wanted to see what was excavated this year, what we could do is sort oldest to newest, and then go all the way to the bottom. And then here's all the units that are excavated this year. And to figure out all the units that are excavated this year, we could go to where the break is in April. And then you could click right here and then go all the way down and highlight these. And then you could import this into Excel and then look at it that way. But that defeats the whole purpose of the database, because you can actually start querying this. So what you can do, if you wanted to look at all the units that are excavated this year, and let's bring in some other data. I mean, what would be some useful data to bring in for the units? Yeah, the unit field, that'd be good. And then how about Purviance as well? What the hell, we'll go crazy. And so here's all the weird crap from the 80s. Like here's all this alphanumeric crap right here. And then down here is where we get into what looks more normal, which is the or more standard, is the unit data from this year, from the past couple of years. Now, to look at what was excavated this year, what we could do is put in what's called a criteria. And you could do this two ways. you could either do it by the inventory number. Like if you knew what inventory number we started with, in theory, you could say greater than inventory number. Anybody know what the inventory numbers we're in right now are?
4,000, I think.
4,000s,
Late 4,000.
late 4,000s. So let's do greater than 4,000. Huh?
Oh my god.
So 49,000? 4,900. Okay, I was like, wow, something's happened. I need to get out more. It's just a lot of prevenances. So greater than 4,900. Okay, so where this is where Access gets really cool. Believe me, it does. Is you can put in criteria here, which are basically is a filter to like cipher out parts of the data. So if I put greater than 4,900 here on inventory and then run this query, this is going to give us all of the inventory numbers that are greater than 4,900. And so it looks like right now 4,900 started in like October. So maybe to get something for the season, let's try 4,200. And this is going back to, and so I mean, you can sort this, sort oldest to newest, like on this click down menu. And this looks like 4,300 started in like August, and then so let's go to 3,900.
That was August 2022.
Yeah, so inventory number isn't all that great a way to find this. Another thing you can do is you can imagine you could do date. And so with date, what we could do is say greater than 1/1/2023, and then we'll see what happens. And this is a good check because, you know, like one of the things you'll learn when working with data is you'll go to run a query and say, you know, that there's like 40 or 50 units we've excavated this season, and then you pull up the database and only 10 show up. And you're like, what the hell? You know, something's wrong. And that's where you need to go in and start looking at the data, and you'll realize, oh my God, none of the excavation dates came over from Airtable. And so you just need to go and fix that. And so like usually like when you get into data analysis, you'll find that like half your time in some cases, especially the fresh data, is like correcting the data or realizing there's a whole pile of catalog sheets in the back. There's no window glass that's showing up because none of the window glass has been entered. And so like, you know, the old adage, you know, the data is only as good as, you know, the data itself. Your data has to rely on, you know, good data being entered. And that's where, you know, being concerned about inventory numbers is key here. So if you look at your inventory numbers now, if we sort this by excavation date, it looks like there's 648 individual samples that were taken out. Because if you bring in, like when you look at this and you index this on Purveyance, oops, why is there like multiple C's here? Like there's more than one example of stratum C right here. Now, why is that? Yeah, there's different types of samples. So when you go to this into the database here, like what's an Airtable, and if you put in sample type right here and then run this query, all of a sudden all the different sample types come in, like all the ArcMat samples. And if we index this on here, you can see stratum C. This has got to be one of the features or one of the washes, because y'all are taking a lot of samples of no-seam samples. So, and let's see. Oh no, did Becca, are you still there?
Yep, I'm here.
Oh, you're still there, Becca. Can you still hear us? Is
Yeah.
everything good on your end?
Everything's fine.
Are you riveted by all this, Becca?
I am incredibly.
Oh, wait, sorry, Becca. I've got the volume turned down.
I am. Yes, I'm very riveted.
I still can't hear you, Becca. Sorry, what was
Oh.
that?
I'm riveted. This is very fascinating.
Oh, let's see. Hold on, Becca. Something's wrong in our universe where we can't hear your voice. We can see your mouth moving, but it looks like everything is good. So thumbs up. So, all right, thanks, Becca. So with a query, what you can do is you can start bringing in different types of data, and I think we should have soil volume in all this, right? There is a soil volume field. So if you want to bring in soil volume, yeah, there's soil volume right there. And you run this query, here's all the soil volume. And if we wanted to just look at like what, just the samples that are H2O samples, what we could do is put in another criteria. So you can put in multiple criteria for this. So for instance, what we can do is under sample type, put in H, and then it always does this thing where it pops up with these suggestions, which are field types, which are annoying. And if you put in a wild card like this, what it does is anything that starts with H is pulled. And so when you run this now, what you get is all the window screen samples. And so in this case, we can see there's 187 Windows water screen samples that were pulled this season. Does that sound right? About right? I hope so. The database, I don't know when the last time Airtable was brought in.
I brought it in last week.
Okay, so it's pretty much on key. And you'll notice here that there are some that are blank right here. So
A couple that didn't get taken by accident, soil volumes
didn't get taken. Okay. I'm going to enter in 0 for right now. And there's a reason why. One thing with Access is that if you're looking at, if you've got data and you've got a null value, it actually won't compile it, which is the next step going to do. And so in this case, like if we wanted to know like how much soil volume was taken for each one of these, each unit, what we could do would be to turn this query right here. This query right now lists every single line that meets these criteria. So it's basically, this is basically a direct representation of the table in this query. But when you do a summary query, what you can do is you can add up the total soil volume, say for the unit right here. And what it'll do is it'll collapse this table into just the unique values that you've got in this query. So to do that, what we'd need to do is we go into view right here and we go to click on this one, which is totals. This new line comes up, which is total. And in this case, what we can do is instead of grouping by, we can click right here and go to sum, and then it'll add up all the values for each purveyance that is listed. But in this case, we're getting the same number of entries because it's adding up like all the soil volumes for, the unique sample type, the purveyance, the unit, and for the date as well. And so there's really, you're not getting a lot of summary on this. So what you have to do is remove the excavation date. And to remove the excavation date, we still want to have the excavation date there. But what you can do is instead of doing group by, you can put in where. And what it does is you can see this little show field is unchecked. And now when you run this, the date's still in the background, but it doesn't show the unique values for all the dates. And now we're starting to get into some interesting data at this point, if you consider it interesting. But also, what's the other problem with this? What other field do we have in here that is, creates all these unique entries? So it won't compile it by like purveyance. Like still we've got, stratum B, like there's like, if we sort this, there's like here, there's like, God, there's like 8 or like 6 different stratum Cs. What's the other, the unit field is all the same, but what field has different values in it? Yeah, was I giving too many hints there by going over it? Yeah, so inventory field. And so if you look at inventory field, we really don't need inventory field for this because we're trying to compile all the data. So we can just delete that field. And now when we run this, now we're getting into something more interesting. If you consider the number of soil, the total gallons of soil interesting, which we all do because, it's cool. Like how many gallons of soil were taken out of the feature. That's pretty interesting to see. There's a total of 94 gallons that were taken out of stratum C. And I don't know who excavated MT2669C, but we can see who did it by going to, does anybody know who excavated that one? Anybody recognize that? Nope. No one can claim that one.
Find out.
We'll find out. Well, here we go. Stratum C is, let's see the year. Stratum C, let's close this out again. Where, oops, it's mad. There. So in this case for stratum C with the 70, that, yeah, there you go, Matt, right there. You're responsible for all this, Matt. So basically you can begin to compile data, and like the more you refine this, like if we get rid of excavators here again, and then we get rid of purveyance, what we get is even a more collapsed set of data. Whereas in the unit 2669, there are 102 gallons of soil that have been not only collected, but then also water screened. So that's a lot of soil. So, and, and of course, this is just kind of like, nonsensical data. But if you like sort this, what you can see is that one still is the record right there. But if we do this for Mount Pleasant in general, like if we remove the date field right here and then run this, what we'll see is at Mount Pleasant.
Take water streams at Mount Pleasant?
We did, but I don't know why. Yeah, there might be something going on. I haven't checked the old data to see where. Oh yeah, and we used to keep the water screen data in a different table. I need to compile it into this one, and that was a nightmare. That's why I just put it all into the purveyance table. It made it a lot easier. So, but at least for the like in this case, what we've got is for excavation date. I mean, this would be expected that for if we say excavation greater than 1/1/2019, and then we run this. This has a total of 66 units that have water screen samples taken from them. And then, since this was the only this was one of the main units with a feature in it. That's why this one has the most in it. So basically what you can do with this is, again, you can start compiling data, and there's different operators that you can use in the criteria. And you can create very like complicated criteria, whatever you want. So if you wanted to look, for example, at just the units 2669 and 2762, actually I think I had some ones written down here that had the most number of ceramic. If we use like for unit, if we put in 2677, and now we run this, it's going to be just for unit 2677. But if we put in or 2675 and run this like with the OR, it'll have both of those units in it. So again, you can just do multiple combinations of criteria in this line right here, and then start really winnowing down what you're looking at. So let me think what other things to talk about with this are. The main thing to know with all this is that like when you're wanting to know, ask a question about the data that's in the database, what you have to do is know what fields are in the database. And if the fields aren't in the database, you can't ask the question. So if you want to know, like for all the samples that were taken since 2019 for water screening, this one right here, this is the query that has by unit how many water screen samples were taken. If you wanted to know how many water screens or samples were taken in all these units when it was sunny out, well, then you'd be SOL, because there's no line in the database that says whether it was sunny or cloudy. And so it's, you got to have the data in the table, and then you got to know what field to pull to bring the data in and what kind of criteria to put in there. So this, what I've been talking about right here so far, this is using one table. And so this is like what's called, like a flat table. It's just one table that you're referring to. And a lot of this stuff you could do actually in Excel and get kind of the same results. There's ways you can compile stuff in Excel where you can collapse, the data like this. But if we wanted to look at something a little more interesting, say the amount of ceramics that have come out of the site and have been cataloged. I mean, this is important, and have been cataloged, because we wanted to look at the number of ceramics from this season. We couldn't do that because none of the ceramics have been cataloged, so it's not going to be in the database. But if we wanted to look at all the ceramics that have been cataloged, excavated and cataloged since 2019, what we could begin to do is bring in some of the other tables. And what you can do to bring in some of the tables is we can just drag some of those things over. So we'll bring in the data right here. And when you bring in the data table, it's automatically associated with the inventory field. So OR219 data, which is the main table right here, it's linked to the purveyance table, because right now the data table, like when you look at OR219 data and we go down to some of the more recent catalog data, like here, you'll see this inventory field right here is it gets that information from the purveyance field right here. And what we also want to bring into this query is the typology, our friend Nartsum South. And this one, in all the catalog data, it refers to our little fancy field called NCAT num, which is the catalog number for the typology. To figure out what kind of artifact it is, it refers to this table right here, Nartsum South, which is, where it is? Yeah, here's NCAT num, and then here's all these fields right here that we can begin to play with. And one of the again, one of the things you need to do when writing queries is to know where the data is. And so, for example, if we're looking for all the tableware that's been excavated and cataloged from the site since 2019, you have to know how to pull tableware. And in the case of the typology right here, there are here's the ceramic function field. This has these different categories of utilitarian versus tableware. Utilitarian is what it sounds like stonewares, coarse stonewares and coarse earthenwares. And then tableware, which is like teawares and flatwares like plates and bowls and cups, and more refined ceramics. These are all these different categories right here of tin glazed, pearlware, whiteware, creamware, all this stuff right here. So you've got a field here that basically, summarizes all these into one value right here. And that's the beautiful thing about a typology like this, is you can either drill down to the specific type of ceramic, or you can create these much broader categories. And these are actually categories that you can change yourself. So like, Mac, you're looking at some of the small finds. You could create a whole new field in this that could be called Mac's categories. And then if you get into the small finds, let's see, under ceramic function, I think there's, personal items. You've got all these items that are under personal. But if you wanted to do like personal weapons, you could look for like under clasp knife, you could create a new field, make it personal, and then dash weapons, and that might be differentiated from like weapons that are, could be field implements. You can make different categories and then start asking the database questions. And so to do this, what you do is in this query, you bring in all these different tables, and now we can start bringing in fields. So we're going to want to get rid of sample type, because we want to look at all the ceramics, no matter where they came from. We don't need soil volume for this. We still want to look at the date of those samples that were excavated after 2019. It'd probably be interesting to have units, because let's say for this query, we want to figure out like what unit had the most amount of tableware. So what we need to, and would you want to look at tableware by weight or by count? No wrong answer. It's whatever you all would want.
Say count probably, because there might be more individual types of vessels within. I mean, weight,
Yeah.
obviously the total, but you're probably gonna get a better representative account for all different vessels. It could, I'm just,
Yeah,
I'm spitballing right now. But
yeah. It's different things. Like with a sherd count, you're going to get the total number of sherds, no matter how big or small they are.
Right.
Whether it's a teeny tiny sherd that came out of your water screening, or it was like half a vessel that broke in half.
Right.
And so it just depends on what kind of data you want. So like with straight pins are usually pretty whole. And so weight, or like nails are actually another way to look at this. Nails are really, you usually just want to use count for nails, like the sherd number.
Right.
It's not a sherd, but the count, because you could have a nail with a massive concretion on it, and what's being weighed isn't so much the nail, but it's like the blob and how many rocks stuck to that iron blob, if it was like a Cheeto nail. But with the ceramics, if you're looking at comparing utilitarian to tableware, and utilitarian are like coarse earthenwares and stonewares that are much thicker, you'd probably want to do it by count, because you could have one massive sherd of stoneware, and that's all you had, that weighed like 100 grams, and then lots and lots of creamware that are much smaller. So it depends on what kind of questions you're asking again. So we'll do sherd count for this, just for the heck of it. And sherd count is under your catalog data, or 219 data, and that one is the number field right here. So this is the number of sherds that are present there. And then to get the tableware, what we'd need to do is use the field that's in NARTSUM South over here, which is ceramic function, and then tableware. And so in this case, we're going to want to use ceramic function right here, and then put in table. And then when we run this, what we'll get is all the different tablewares from the different units. But in this case, what we want to do is for the number field, we want to make this into a summary. And now when we run this, what we get is like there's the total number is 44 units had ceramics that have been cataloged. And the one with the most, the one with the most amount of ceramics is unit 2655. And I can't remember when that one was excavated, but we could put in under provenience, we could put in excavation date. And let's put, do this one. 2655 was excavated in 2019. And 2675 for like unique excavation days had the most amount of ceramics, which is 215. Looks like 2655 was broken into two different samples, like the total number of ceramics, and that's why it's not the greatest amount in this one. So, but again, what you can do is you can start like, you know, if we wanted to compare tableware versus utilitarian wares, what we could do is bring in like tableware or utilitarian asterisks. And then when we run this, what we'll get is both tableware and utilitarian. And this isn't a very, like, you can't really do a comparison with this because, you know, it's just all, you know, random how the Access is bringing it up. But what you can do is you can do what's called a crosstab query. And with the crosstab query, what you can do is say, you know, which one is going to be the row versus the column. And we'll get rid of excavation date. And then this one is going to be the value. And now when we run this, what we get is for each unit, table and utilitarian ware that's grouped together. And so this would be useful for like if you wanted to do a plot of all the tableware and utilitarian wares across the site and bring this into GIS. You could bring this into GIS and then relate the unit to the unit feature class. And then Chris will talk about this when he does the GIS demonstration, and we can set these up for you for your papers. You can then plot out like, you know, the tableware versus the utilitarian. But if you wanted to say, you know, look at like let's look at the example of nails. That's another one that is a useful one to look at. And for nails, what we're going to do is basically when you do these, you make your queries as simple as possible. We're going to want to bring in under ceramic function, I think that it's nails. And when we do this, let's see. Yeah, nails brings it up. And so this is the total number of nails that came from each unit. And if we wanted to look at like machine cut versus wrought, that's where we'd need to go to our NARTSUM South table and go up to the category of nails. And then you can see that ceramic function field isn't the one that holds whether it's wrought or cut, but it's the one field that has whether it's wrought cut or like a machine cut with a hand wrought tip or head. And so what we can do is we can bring in under this one. Did I say one?
Yeah.
So bring in one. And now when we run this, let's see what we get. We get all these different categories here. And now when we do the crosstab, what we'll do is we'll make this the column. We'll make this where, because we don't need to show this one. And this should work. Yeah, now you've gotten all these different categories. There's a machine cut right here. There's machine cut with the hand wrought heads. And then there's miscellaneous square, which is that category where you don't know whether it's a cut or a wrought nail. And so that's still useful to have. And then miscellaneous unidentified. That's probably, yeah, just the ones that you can't tell what it is at all. And then there's rivets and spikes. So, but in this case right here, you can see that now you could do a distribution plot of all the hand wrought nails. So this is one of the plots that Chris did for the Overseer's site. And this is, you know, what with a query that he ran to get all this. So basically the idea behind all this is you can get any kind of data you want, but you have to, you know, be asking information that's available in the database. So like for what else would you want to know about nails? What other query would you want to write about nails? Anybody have any wild and crazy ideas?
How many were burned or annealed?
Ooh, yeah. So how would we do that?
We need a condition code in the data.
How do you know all this, Liz? Because you've been cataloging way too many nails. So that would be under 219 data. So we put in condition. And then
I don't think we have a nail.
and we're going to do this as a select.
Yeah.
Oh, we could let's like you could put all these in right here. And yeah, this does become complicated
Yeah.
because under condition, it's like also whether it's a bent or a straight nail. And so this is where like, you know, sometimes like to do like a cross tab query of burnt nails versus non-burnt nails, you'd probably have to do some dicing of the data. But if we wanted to bring in all the burnt nails, what we could do is do asterisk BU asterisk. So anything that has BU in it, that's where if you put the asterisk at the beginning and at the end, anything that contains that. And this is like if you've ever used the queries in GIS where you can do contains, it's just like that one. It's what it does. And this has anything that's burned or partially burned. And so what you could, like if we wanted to see like all the burned nails that have been excavated and cataloged since 2019, what we could do is we'll remove unit right here. And I think this should do it. But it also, yeah, this has this pesky problem where all the different categories are still in here. So this is where you'd want to, instead of where we're under condition, you'd want to put where. And now when you run this is going to reduce it. So you can see that there's like majority of the burnt nails are machine cut. But if we wanted to see what is not burned, so you take a screenshot of that with your eyeballs. So we could put this into like into Excel. And this is exactly what you do if you're like want to make a table for this in a report. But if we wanted to look at what is not burned, then what we do is put not like BU, and this will exclude all that stuff. And now when we run this, what we can see is, yeah, there's like an equal number of non-burnt hand wrought versus machine cut. And that would beg the question of whether or not the Mount Pleasant occupation had less burned nails. And is that because the deposits aren't associated with like stuff being thrown in the hearth and then thrown out, like where you have like if you're using wood with nails in it for kindling, who knows? Or there's a burnt building or not burnt building. Probably want to do a distribution plot of all the burnt nails and see where they show up. All the burnt machine cut nails versus all the burnt hand wrought nails, and then do a distribution plot of everything that's not burned. So if we bring this into yeah, I don't know if these are going to match up exactly. Oops. See if these line up. Yeah, machine cut. Yeah, and there's spikes that are not burned right here. So you can see that the majority of the nails aren't burned, but there's a significant number of machine cut nails that are burned. And so if we want to know, like, and this is, part of, what when you're looking at the database and you see something like this, you might be curious, like, where are all these burnt nails coming from? And so to look at that, what you could do is go back to your query, put in like burned. And what I usually do is I'll run, like if I'm creating like a complex criteria, I'll run it each time to make sure I'm getting the right data. Okay, so we're back to 298 machine cut nails. And then we want to put in, like if we wanted to know what unit it came from, what field would we put in? And where would it be from? Yeah, unit. Yeah, the unit field from provenience, exactly. And now when you run this and we sort this on these, like 6 units right here are the ones that have the majority of the burned machine cut nails. And to understand where they are, you need to bring this into GIS and do a distribution plot. So that's basically, the stuff you can do with the database, like in terms of running it. And I got some examples here of let's see, we did the tablewares, but if you want to play with some of this stuff, you could use these exercises and then bring in these fields and then just start to play with the data and experiment with it. Alternatively, you could ask us for, what you need. But, one of the joys of doing this in the database is you can pursue, you can start drilling down into the data and start exploring, like, why, you notice there's so many burned machine cut nails and you want to know where they are. Well, the only way to do that is like to use the queries and then start drilling into it. And again, can anybody think of of something they have been wanting to know of the site, like data that's there?
How many bones we have?
Yeah, how many bones? So any particular kind of bones?
Total.
Hmm?
I guess total bones.
Total bones?
We've been getting a lot.
Okay. Now remember, this won't be for this season because we haven't cataloged the animal bone, right?
A lot, but not all.
Has it been data entered?
Good question.
Okay,
Probably some of it, but not all of it.
not all of it. Okay.
Because shoot,
Yeah.
Good to know that. Heard that between like poultry versus like bovine or swine, like what the ratio is there. If that's
Now,
like,
that's something where it's like the weather.
I got you.
If it's not in the database, it's not in the database. So that would be that is a very valid question to ask. But unlike the weather data, but that doesn't, we don't get that data until like we have send it to Barney and have the ZooArc analysis done. And in some cases, like for bone fragments between like pig and bovine, there's no way to know. So it'd have to be on the epiphyses on the ends or a large enough medial portion where you can tell whether it's pig or bovine. So again, there's like, you got to know the data and then know what you're going to get. I mean, you could do that ratio because there shouldn't be any reason why, like, there's more epiphyses or joint bones for pigs versus cows. But, and so you could get that ratio, but it'd be having the right data. So for looking for bone, what we'd want to do is, again, start a new query. We'll get rid of some of these fields right here. And probably the best one, I can't remember if under ceramic function,
Wouldn't it be subsistence?
well, you could do it more than one way. Absolutely. You could go to, if we go to NARTSUM South and we we index this on this master typology here, we could scroll down until we find bone. Tell me when you see it. Faunal remains. Okay. So we could put in, yeah, you could use, you could do it more than one way. You could put under, do it under subsistence, but that's going to include all of floral, or you could use the A field for faunal remains, or you could use, and under faunal remains, you've got eggshell versus bone. I have a personal bias towards the ceramic function because I created that a long time ago, and there's categories that I like. So, but you could use any of these for that. But we'll use ceramic function, and we'll go back over here to the query 10, and then under ceramic function, I think it said bone and number. And now when we run this, like the unit that had the most amount of bone is unit 442. And
That's the number.
oh yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, you're right. 2748. So any other, that was a pretty simple query, which is good. That was a success that we were actually able to do that. But anything in this you'd want to drill down on?
I mean, to build off of Alex, we do cow teeth versus pig teeth.
Mhm.
We could try that.
That's true. No, you're absolutely right. So what will you put in here to get at that? Like, so under AIGH, that's where teeth is. So we could put in
I think under species, we could cow versus.
under species,
I would need to look at the catalog sheet.
or you don't have to. You can just run a query.
Oh.
And now when we run this, what you can see is, yeah, there's CO is cow,
Mhm.
and then PI is pig.
Because you have unidentified.
Yeah.
Mhm.
There's unidentified, yeah. So if we put in PI or CO, so we can get at this. It like using teeth as a representation of the total amount of animals that are there. Now we've got this one. And if we do this as a crosstab query, or actually, let's just do it for the whole site, because you're asking about the whole site, not by unit. So let's well, I'm curious about this. 1 second, Alex. I want to get this. Now I'm all like gooned up on this one. See species. Now we run this. Yeah. So as you might expect, the most highest number is pig teeth and then cow teeth. And what were you going to ask there, Alex? Nope,
It's gone.
it's gone. Okay. So, but yeah, so you can get this, and we could also do a plot of this across the site and see where the teeth are showing up, and then also plot the bone to see if the two, mirror each other and what's representative, because it might be that there was like one like for the cow, there might have been one jaw that was in the plow zone that got busted up, and it was all in a single unit. And it might be that cow are not represented hardly at all, except for that one occurrence. So again, this is where, so like if we look at the, if we bring in unit on this, unit.
Okay, that's kind of what I was gonna ask was, if you were to narrow it down and not, say like you were gonna take representation just from cloud context, but if you were to basically look at undisturbed context, like feature deposits, things like that, obviously it wouldn't be represented in the whole site with every single convenience, but you'd be
Mhm.
taking that data relatively undisturbed context. Could you do that?
Yeah, you could do that, and we'd need to have that, we'd need to have the site stratum field, like to pull out features.
Yeah.
And I don't know, let's see, the feature field should be entered. And if there's a feature, let's see. $158, is that the subfloor pit?
147.
That's like bar pit.
That's the bar pit. So it looks like the only feature that's been excavated that has teeth in it is the subfloor pit. And there's not a lot of teeth coming from that because there are units where there's like 19 teeth. But if we do, let's do the crosstab on this guy to do make this into a column. Make this where.
Those are plasters.
Oh, these are plow scars.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So that looks like there's no teeth, or we just haven't cataloged. We have not cataloged that data.
Yeah.
Yes, or it hasn't been data entered. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And we haven't done fittings, so that's not yet cataloged.
so you can see, like, if one of you all wanted to do like the subfloor pit for your paper, you'd be very frustrated. So that's why we're like, use data from previous seasons, not this season, because even when we get into like January and you're working on the paper, then a lot of this data is not necessarily going to be in. So but if we like for this one, let's do row for the unit. Now when we run this, hopefully it'll work. Yeah. So in this case, it looks like the cow teeth are pretty much all over the site. And there's a couple where there's a lot, like this unit right here. But it seems, that cow data is pretty representational. It's not coming from just one spot. It's coming from all over the place. So you can see that as being valid.
I do have one more question. On those Excel sheets that you punch in, would you be willing to give me a bit of a refresher on how to set up different types of tables and just like plug them in? I mean, so I took a stats class. We used SPSS for a lot of that stuff, and basically it would just give you maybe 3 or 4 different types of tables. Like how would you mind showing me like how to, or showing us how to do that in Excel? Like if you had to,
Oh, like how to compile the data?
or like say set them up in like a table or like a bar graph or something like that.
Yeah. So like if we did like this one, went back here and did a just did a select on this one and get rid of unit and then ran this like this. Like you could bring in this index, you could just copy this.
Yep.
And then bring it into Excel and paste it. And then you could do a there's insert graph,
Oh, sweet. Okay.
and then there's your cow versus your pig teeth. So it just you just copy and paste. That's pretty easy. So yeah. But yeah, so main thing with all this is to know like what you can do, and like depending on what you want to do for your paper, if you want to get into exploring the data and understand, like asking more complex questions and like drilling into, like, for example, this one is, where all the cow teeth are or what type of teeth are there. It's going to pay to start learning how to use Access and then do what's called exploratory data analysis, where you just start like bringing up queries and putting in different categories, and then just letting the data take you where it's gonna go. So and you still hanging in there, Becca? All right. Thanks for staying with us, Becca. I'm sorry that we can't hear you. I don't know what's going on with the sound. I gotta check that. So, but yeah. So that's not that we can hear you, Becca, but do you have any questions there? Oh, in the chat. Let's see. Do. Oh, there it is. Oh, minimum number of individuals. Yeah, that would be probably wouldn't be able to get to that with the catalog data because we don't have, what type of teeth they are, whether they're molar or incisors, and then what number, what the number of the tooth is in the skull. So again, that's like more part of like the like an analysis with a zoo archaeologist. So yeah, but we do have that data entered for like from the analyses that Barney and her students have done. That's in the database in some cases, like an OR 219 or 249. So, but cool. So there's access, everything you need to know. So yay. So if you all ever want to, get into this stuff, when you start, we're going to meet with you all and talk about your data for the papers, and think about what sort of data you want to be looking at, and we can also make suggestions on the data that you'd need for that. And again, a lot of it's going to be making sure that you're asking questions where we've got data from that's already been entered and it's consistent. Like again, for this season, I don't like, I guess the nails have all been entered, and so that's a pretty consistent data. But other things like ceramics, we haven't even begun to analyze the ceramics yet. Get those
We're
sorted.
having the sorting party.
Yeah, are you coming for the ceramic sorting party, Becca? Nice, awesome. So all right, do you need anything else, Becca? All right, well, thanks for joining us today. We'll talk later. Okay, bye.